Hello, you potheads. So I'm recording this during the day instead of the night. So there is going to be lighting in this room is a little fucked up for this video, but I need to get my thoughts out, so I'm doing it. So the recent Nintendo Direct for Tears of the Kingdom have come out, showing 10 minutes of solid gameplay, kind of giving you a little bit of an in-depth look on how the abilities are going to work, and the new abilities that were showing off for Link to be able to interact with the world in different ways than we did Breath of the Wild, which then sparks the conversation up again for the internet on people's thoughts about Breath of the Wild and how the sequel is going to look. And I would like to talk about the gripes I have about people thinking that this game is going to be just the future of Zelda and how the game is and how much people don't understand video game development and Zelda in particular. So I want to start off this conversation with something that is a little more simple, and a thing that people have a lot of gripes about, and it's the braking system, the degrading system in Breath of the Wild and now Tears of the Kingdom. Nintendo doesn't like to do things conventionally. They like to innovate. They like to do weird stuff. They like to make things different. And having a degrading, a durability system is usually frowned upon because of how other games do it. They do it in a way that doesn't help the mechanics of the game. In other games, you tend to have your set weapons, and then they get less durable, and then you have to go and fix it, and then you go back with the same weapons you have, or you have upgrade of the same types of weapons, yada yada yada. But that doesn't really go into the gameplay like Breath of the Wild does. Breath of the Wild was made with this idea first. They want an open air, open world, open zone game, and they want you to be needing to explore it to get more items. Now, most of these items are not permanent that you get, but they are required if you want to keep your inventory stocked. The combat itself isn't crazy robust at first glance, but that's because they want you to change your weapons. The combat is based on utilizing your resources opposed to having flashy sword moves. Yeah, you would think, the knight of the Hyrulean army would have a little flashier moves. Sure. But that's not how the game was presented. It's not how the game was built, and it works. Breath of the Wild without a durability system would be boring, wouldn't work. Because that is intrinsically in the game. It's inherently part of the game. The game was made with the idea of rotating weapons out. Now, does it suck if you have a good weapon and you want to use it, but not, you're trying to save it for a good moment to use it because it will eventually break? Yeah, that kind of sucks. But it's also not like you can't find weapons like that again. The game basically tells you off the start, like, hey, don't get too attached to a weapon because it can break, and you can even utilize them breaking if it's badly damaged. You could throw it, and you can get a crit hit. You lose the weapon, but now you've caused more damage. Cool. And Tears of the Kingdom, and this is where the complaints come in. Tears of the Kingdom did not ditch the system of durability, but revamped it and evolved it to still work with the complaints that people had and still be able to have the same system, but in a very Nintendo fashion. And because Nintendo does things that other companies don't, there's a fuse option now where you could fuse things together. One of the examples they show, the first example was you had the tree branch. It's about to break. There's a boulder. I'm going to stick this boulder to the branch. Now it's not only more durable, it's also more powerful. And it changes the weapon. Another example is I have the stick. There's that pitchfork. I fuse them together. Now it's a longer stick. I have even more reach than I did before. And this is also more durable. And it probably has more strength too. So no, they didn't get rid of the durability system, but they made it better. And that's what you want from a sequel. I would not want a Breath of the Wild sequel, a game that the foundation of the sequel is Breath of the Wild, to take away such a pivotal mechanic that works with the combat. If you want a combat that's more like what Twilight Princess was trying to do, something more robust, then they would have to make a whole new system for it. It can't be a direct sequel. But also, I don't want Zelda to be just like Dark Souls. You know, where, you know, the combat, you know, it is a little more robust. Even though Dark Souls, just because it's slow, doesn't make it more robust. There are a lot of things that you could use. You got a lot of things at your disposal, but so do you in Breath of the Wild. You have abilities. You have the Sheikah Slate ability. You have other weapons. You have different weapons you could use, and there is still dodging. There's perfect dodge, so you can do the flurry rush. There's using specific items for specific situations. There's a lot more than just brute forcing your way through combat. And I feel like people who have an issue with the durability system, which I have had my own gripes too, things do break pretty quick. I'm not gonna say it's a perfect system, but it's a system that works. But I think people just go into battle headstrong without thinking of the other ways to work with battle. And the game gives you plenty of environmental things to use. So Tears of the Kingdom evolved the durability system and made it more fun. Made it, so many different combinations. You could combine anything with anything. Your shield could have a puff mushroom. Your arrows, instead of having just elemental arrows, you could combine shit with your arrows to make your own creations. You could have a homing missile. You could have an ice arrow. You could have all these different... It opens up the game so much with such a simple change. It is needed for the type of style that they are going with, and they improved it immensely. Now let's talk about the world. People complaining that it is still in the same Hyrule as a Breath of the Wild. And I feel like these people fucking want to ignore the changes that the game has made when it comes to the environment. Like, the very first trailer shows that shit changed. At the very least, the first trailer shows that the castle is not attached to the ground anymore. We got that. But we have an entire separate layer of the world with the Sky Islands. And not only that, but the normal world that we are in has changed too. It's not the exact same landscape. It is different. Also, as if, like, Hyrule has really changed that much between games anyway. Like, yeah, we're using the same exact map with a lot of changes. Not just a few changes, a lot of changes. Which, again, Breath of the Wild had secrets that people were still finding out today. Which now we're going to find even more secrets because the world's revamped and been added so much more. But, like, what's the biggest difference between, like, Ocarina of Time and Twilight Princess? Like, when it comes to that world, is that Twilight Princess is bigger. What's the biggest difference with Wind Waker and Majora's Mask? Wind Waker is water. Like, yeah, it's a different world, but, like, again, this is a game made in 2002, so I get it. I'm not harping on the design choice because they were limited in what they had to do, but after a while, traversing water isn't really exciting. Hell, A Link Between Worlds uses the exact same map with less changes than Breath of the Wild did, the exact same map as A Link to the Past. Now, it's not the direct sequel that came afterwards. It is a sequel that came 20 years after the original game. Sure, that would be the argument. But people still love the game because it changed enough. The dungeons were different enough. Low Rule was different enough. Even though it was the same concept, it is still a direct sequel to the game. And it's not out of laziness. It's so you could have a place of familiarity while also being in discovering new things. And people have a lot of complaints about open world games not being fun to traverse, or there's too much open in this world. And I feel like if we had tried to have an open world formula for a game, but had a landscape that is as small as Ocarina of Time or Majora's Mask, with it still trying to be open, it would take the sense of adventure out. There is nothing wrong with open fields. There is nothing wrong with a long string of forest, or climbing a mountain and not finding anything for a couple seconds. Not every single inch of the world needs to be inhabited with something. Like Ocarina of Time, like that was the biggest 3D world that we've gotten at that time in 1998 when it came to action adventure games. RPGs are a different beast, which by the way, nobody complained about Final Fantasy VII or any of the Final Fantasies open world, and that also had a long string of nothingness with only random encounters because you couldn't even interact with the world around you. It was just random encounters, but that was expected. But not a lot of people complain about Ocarina of Time's connection to the world. It felt like you were in a world. And that's what Breath of the Wild exactly did. And it's a lot more fun to traverse. There's a lot of elevation. There's a lot of things going on. Just because there are paths that don't have something happening every 5 seconds, because your attention span is that of a gnat, doesn't mean it's bad design. It's actually fantastic design. The game has you want to explore, and you can find new things. Open world is not bad. It just has to be done right. Breath of the Wild, done perfectly right. Outside of the fucking raining and can't be able to climb, fuck rain. Rain sucks. I am so glad that a new ability allows you to bypass that. If you find a cave, you could just go up. You could just go up. Like in Tears of the Kingdom, you could just fucking go up now. If it's raining, don't have to deal with that shit no more. Fuck rain, dude. Just hot. Anyway, what the fuck was I talking about? Yeah, so Breath of the Wild's world, open world, perfect. Then you look at a game like Assassin's Creed Origins, where you are in a desert. And you run across the desert. So you get to a town. And you just keep running on the desert. There's no fun in that game. Origins wasn't a good game. People think it's a good game. I didn't like it. It bored the shit out of me. What I'm trying to say is that Breath of the Wild, open world, did such a good job at being an open world, being able to give you all these options for traversal and unlocking even a few more options for traversal, making it more fun to actually want to explore the world. And open areas aren't a bad thing if done right. It connects one area to the other. Like when you go out and you drive to work, you don't have to do a fucking obstacle course every time you do it. No, you just fucking drive to work. Like, yeah, that's more mundane, but people love road trips. Like, people just want to see the sights and just have the feeling of the fresh air. If you drive from Chicago to the Grand Canyon, like that's quite a few hours, but people enjoy that drive. You're driving for 12 hours or however long it's going to be, and you're just enjoying the sights, you're enjoying the fresh air, you're enjoying the feeling of the feeling of adventure. Like, if you want to play a game that has non-stop shit happening, and, you know, you only have to move 20 feet to get to the next interesting thing, play Bayonetta. Or play a super linear game like that. Open world may not be for you. And Zelda has always been like this, where you do have a vast open world with stuff to do. And Breath of the Wild actually made you want to do a lot more in the open world than any previous Zelda ever has. Now, talking about this Zelda with previous Zeldas, people don't like change. And that's kind of the theme of this video. People don't like change to the formula. People gripe on Breath of the Wild and now Tears of the Kingdom because it's not like a traditional Zelda. A traditional Zelda that, you know, outside of the first game, it sets you on the path, and you get traditional dungeons, and you get an item per dungeon, and then you use it for, and you're allowed to use it, and you just gain items and whatever. But the thing is, that formula got tired. They did not want to have Skyward Sword happen again. Now, I know there has been a resurgence on Skyward Sword, and it's like a cult classic now, with with a lot of minority being like, well, it was actually a fantastic game. No, it wasn't. Skyward Sword was dull. Like, I love Zelda, trust me. And I did not like Skyward Sword. The story was fine. The story was good. Like, I liked the story. Demise as a villain was pretty fantastic. Groose kind of fucking annoys me. I know people love him, but I don't like him. He got pretty good at the end, sure. That's what they wanted, but I didn't love him. But the world's boring. Like, I'd rather go on a horse on land than be on a bird between going from island to island, and each island having basically nothing on it outside of a couple islands, and then going down to a super small condensed world area that also has very little to do in it, and it's more, you know, feeling like more, you know, cookie cutter. Like, this is volcano, this is grass, this is weather, this is desert. Like, the only cool thing in that game, like, mechanically, was the time stone area with the Lanayru Desert. And even then, they fucked it up with the boss looking like a Monsters, Inc. character. And then, the controls were bad. No matter what you say about the controls, if it worked for you or it didn't, the fact that we had so many different accounts on how the controls work and how inconsistent it is bad controls. If people have different... you could have your opinions on controls of games all you want. You can say it's bad for one reason or another, but if multiple people have different variants of how much the controls work, that's a problem. We did not want another Skyward Sword. We got the tired formula. When you open up a Zelda game, you're gonna get a hour-long intro to kind of get you into the world, and you got forest, fire, water. Then you got the pivotal point that changes the game up a bit, and then you have to get more MacGuffins because each one just has a MacGuffin. Which, honestly, by the way, Ocarina of Time still did that the best. With Twilight Princess and Majora's Mask, like, a close second. You got three, and then you kind of repeat that with 2 extra areas. Now, Wind Waker changed it up, and got the order different and threw in some new stuff, which was cool. And even Majora's Mask changed it up, where it was swamp, snow, water, haunted. Which, only 4 areas in the game, but at least they changed it up. And I'm not saying the formula was bad, it worked. I love Zelda. I've played basically every single Zelda game. But you can only do a formula so many times before you run out of ideas to make that exact formula interesting. Breath of the Wild evolved the formula. They evolved the series. The series was always meant to go this direction. And if you don't think so, then you're wrong. If you like your traditional Zelda, sure, that's fine. But thinking that Zelda wasn't gonna go full open world, kind of like how the original game was kind of open world, you know, because you can do anything you want at any time, because that's just how the game was created. And then you are just delusional. Breath of the Wild changed up the formula, evolved the series to have even more adventure and more exploration, with the core still being the Zelda. It still feels like a Zelda game. It just feels so much grander. It feels different yet familiar. And people give a lot of shit to Divine Beasts and how aesthetically they are all the same. Even though mechanically they're different, and they are very much different dungeons or challenges, how you enter them and then how you go through them. But I understand the complaint of aesthetically being different, or not being different enough. But I'm playing through, again, on Master Mode, on stream, and I didn't have an issue with Divine Beasts before. But now that I think about it even deeper, I honestly like this change. Because the temples or the dungeons in previous Zelda games felt a little bit not as connected. I like the fact that what you are doing with the Divine Beasts have a lot more context in the story than what other games have done. Now, I'm not saying the other games haven't had context. Like, they tell you, why you're doing it. Especially Ocarina of Time does it best when it comes to the spiritual stones. Being like, well, you're actually completing tasks for people, and then you're getting a spiritual stone from them, opposed to just, oh, well, it just happens to be here. This place was created to hold this thing, I guess. While that is not bad, and I, again, still very much enjoy it, I'm not saying that's bad, Breath of the Wild gave you even more context. You are saving the Divine Beasts that were possessed and killed the previous champions, and you're trying to get them back. So then you can use them in order to defeat Calamity Ganon. Like, there are in-game consequences for your actions. Like, even, like, depending on how many beasts you free, if any, it changes the final battle. It changes what happens before the final battle, and then it changes how easy or hard the final battle is going to be. Because of what you did. You're saving these Divine Beasts in order to defeat Calamity Ganon. And there's a reason for their existence. And there's a reason why they are where they are and what mechanics that they have. And they are connected to people that you get connected to in the world. It is a lot more integrated than, well, this power you need is in the desert. Go to the desert. Oh, this thing you have is underwater. Go underwater. Like, again, there is context in past Zelda games, but the more we went on, the less we got. Like, all the way up to Twilight Princess, we had decent amount of context, but it was still kind of MacGuffin chasing. It kind of was. But then, yeah, and then we hit Skyward Sword, where reasons. Like, yeah, they give reasons. All the games give reasons, and some games do it better than others, and some games do it more fun than others. And most Zelda games do it a really good, great way. But I think that Breath of the Wild gave so much more context to why you're doing what you're doing. And and like how these things work mechanically. And there is a reason why all their aesthetics are the same, but yet it's still different. Like, yeah, you still have your you got desert, you got fire, you got water, you got air, but they work within the story so much better, opposed to just going with the formula. Plus the fact that you could tackle them in any order, while yes, kind of made the story suffer a little bit, was a nice change of pace because you could tackle it at any order. Now, do I hope that Tears of the Kingdom gives you more when it comes to dungeons? Yes. Like, aesthetically, yes. And I want them to be more different. I want this formula to evolve, though. I don't want it to be like a traditional Zelda. We're never going to get another traditional Zelda. The series needs to evolve to stay relevant. Imagine if God of War came back with the Norse mythology, and it instead of doing what they did, changing the gameplay, where making it a little more modern and making it more methodical, instead just kept the same hack and slash, semi-isometric camera view, same exact way they did it for Greek mythology God of War. The game would have not been received as well. It would have not been looked at as, Game of the Year 2018. It would have just been like, oh, it's returned to form, and then it would have gotten like a 7 out of 10 or some shit. And a lot of people would have complained that it was, the formula was getting stale. This game feels like it's from 2006. Because the series would have not evolved at that point. It would have stayed stagnant. If Mario Odyssey is a huge game, and it is looked at so fondly because of what it did different, not because of what it did the same. It still has the core of Mario, yet they made it like an open zone game. Like, each area you could just, it's a playground. You could grab what you want in whatever order, as long as you get enough to get to the next area. They changed up the gameplay. They changed up how the game works, but still kept the core values of the game intact. And that's what Breath of the Wild does. If you don't do that, you get situations like Assassin's Creed, where all the way up to Syndicate, even though Syndicate was a good game, it's got stale. People were not liking the series anymore. And sometimes, if you can't evolve, then you should just not do it. And some series can evolve, like Mario and Zelda, and even Sonic at this point. Sonic's been a little more shaky. That's a bad example. Again, trust me, I love myself some Sonic, but it was shaky. Or, God of War. Or all these different franchises that were able to evolve stayed relevant. But I don't hear anybody fucking talk about new Assassin's Creed games anymore. Like, yeah, sure, they got received well, like Origins and Valhalla. But also those games took away the core of what the game is. People want an Assassin's Creed game, not a Dark Souls game, or not a God of War clone. But Ubisoft didn't know how to evolve the series past what Syndicate did, and they were like, well, the series is getting stagnant, it's a lot of the same shit, how do we do this? Nintendo knows how to do that. Say what you want about Nintendo's marketing team or their business side, but their developers are MVPs of the gaming industry. And now I'm not saying there aren't plenty of MVPs, but Nintendo knows how to evolve their series. And I know all the complaints are a vocal minority. Most people are gonna love these changes and are gonna play the shit out of the game. Because there is so much more to the game, and the fact that there's going to be a more full-fledged story, hopefully, with hopefully a better ending. Because I will concede to that Breath of the Wild's ending kind of fucking sucked. Yes. So I hope they do the story more justice. So having at least the main quest be a little bit more of a linear progression, while being able to not have to be forced to do it like immediately. You know, still having the free roaming and being able to go wherever you want, when you want, unlocking what you want, but then the main story stuff is kind of linear. Like, that's kind of what I'm hoping for. I don't want it to try to tackle different dungeons at different times, because I do love the story of Zelda, and I want them to focus more on story and evolving the mechanics, opposed to just trying to, you know, you could do everything at whatever order. Which, honestly, did become one of my gripes with A Link Between Worlds. How they did everything, the fact that you could do everything in whatever order you want, kind of hurt the game for me a little bit. Like, yeah, it's cool that you were able to go to Dungeon 8 and get the Hylian Shield off the bat, but I felt like the progression wasn't there. Like, yeah, you're progressing the story, but you're not progressing when it comes to items. You could buy every item no matter what, and the game didn't change mechanically because of it. Breath of the Wild at least gave you context on giving you the items when you need it. And, like, okay, now the world's your playground. Breath of the Wild did what they tried to do with A Link Between Worlds a lot better. And you still get a special ability for defeating a Divine Beast with the champion's abilities. Which was still a good way of doing things. And I'm not saying A Link Between Worlds wasn't a great game. It was a fantastic game. I love the shit out of it. But that is a gripe I have with it, because I know how to criticize series that I love. But with that, I think my ramblings have gone on for 40 minutes. So here, yeah, this is my little video essay. So I hope you enjoyed my ramblings, and if not, whatever, I just wanted to get my opinion out there. But I am excited for Tears of the Kingdom, and I'm sure most people are. And fuck the haters. Anyway, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more from me, subscribe. And until next time, bye.